On a tranquil Christmas morning, a young woman possessing a benevolent disposition and an innate inclination to assist others observed an isolated elderly man seated in despondency in an effort to elevate his mood. She purchased and gave him minor gifts and indulgences. Believing it was merely a straightforward act of benevolence, however. An hour later, her tranquil day was disturbed by a knock at the door. A gang of lawyers was standing outside delivering unforeseen information linked to her benevolence that would transform her Christmas in ways she never might have. I extend my visionary greetings to everyone, and I welcome your return to the shared stories of today. I possess a poignant narrative to convey to you regarding on Christmas morning. Emma knelt in silence. Corner of the cathedral. Murmuring a hush, she fervently pleaded for compassion and tranquility to permeate the globe and fortitude to manage her quotidian responsibilities. She stood as her prayer concluded. Grappling with her troubles, she stood up and straightened her coat with a subtle smile radiated across her visage, illuminating her gaze filled with anticipation for the forthcoming day this Christmas. Emma had saved just enough money for a special meal at her favorite Italian restaurant, which, despite its modest size, she had not enjoyed in months. To some, this may seem like a routine event, but to Emma, it held genuine significance. Intense desire for her preferred pastime imbued her with exhilaration as she contemplated the minor sacrifices she designed to conserve sufficient resources by reducing expenditures, coffee, omitting snacks, and engaging in stretching. Every penny now enables her to finally indulge herself to a moment of solace and elation. A little celebration to assist her in forgetting her endeavors. Albeit briefly pondering over these thoughts, Emma began her journey. Emma started walking towards the church's exit, but as she made her way through a more tranquil corner, her steps became more deliberate. Remained briefly stationary when seated alone on a bench removed from the throng was an elderly man. Initially, she presumed he was only reclining. Yet as she approached, she observed his drooping shoulders and removed, inclined towards the silent tears cascading upon the ground. The arid ground underneath him caused her to approach. She said. Excitement and cravings diminished as concern arose. She took charge of something that was clearly rooted in reality. Ed hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should approach, but ultimately decided not to step forward. "Excuse me. Are you well?" I spoke softly. Taking care not to startle him, the elderly guy gazed upward. Surprised by he swiftly wiped his cheeks in her presence. To regain his composure momentarily, he remained silent. His lips pressed together a faint line. He finally articulated, his voice laden with sincerity. "It is inconsequential, merely recollections," he stated feebly, compelling an inadequate smile that could not conceal his. Emma sat beside him, expressing her sadness adequate area to ensure his comfort, yet demonstrating her willingness to occasionally articulating your thoughts is beneficial. The intellect can render it somewhat less burdensome, she softly said. "If you feel emotions, I'm here." As he spoke, the man gazed at her. "I expressed my hope to spend Christmas with my family." He softly stated that he visited his family. Son and encounter my grandchild. But they transformed. He informed me that they had alternative arrangements. His voice faltered, and he hesitated, taking a breath. Although I was eager to see them reintegrate into their lives, even for a day, they did not. "I am currently present as requested. I am uncertain why I am spending Christmas alone. Perhaps I went to the church to feel less emotional lonely." Emma's heart ached for him. "Apologies," she stated gently. "No individual ought to experience, particularly today." Her voice, the man nodded with compassion. Gently dabbing his eyes with a quivering, she remained by his side. And during the moment of quiet, she gazed below at her. She instinctively touched her purse. It resembles the process of decision-making over an idea ignited in her imagination. Despite her plans for the day had revolved around her individual passions during a modest celebration, She became aware of the presence of something significantly more important. The elderly man's required kindness and connection exceeded her requirements at that point. She resolved to have a supper. She would not allow him to spend Christmas alone. She rose and gently instructed him to wait. "I will return shortly." At that point, the man acquiesced with a nod. Emma's expression remained ambiguous. Proceeded towards the church deliberately with intention. Like the elder, the man observed her departure from his shoulders, slumped. And a subdued melancholy returned. For a brief while, he believed she may not return. And the recognizable burden loneliness begins to permeate once more. However, Emma harbored no intention of abandoning him. She entered a local establishment, resolved to provide a modicum. She meticulously brought joy to the elderly man. Choose a cup of steaming coffee and a warm pastry. Anticipating it could provide him some comfort, as she neared the counter, a stunning Christmas card attracted her attention. She gazed at the card, adorned in the most possessive hues. She lifted it and, after a brief pause, penned a short note to the recipient. Something uncomplicated yet optimistic in her words was intended to remind the individual that Hugh is not solitary this Christmas and to convey a slight flicker of joy at the billing. Emma commenced enumerating her finances and acknowledged that the small amount she had reserved for her special lunch was now expended on these products. However, she hesitated. Recalling the prayer she had uttered, had murmured in the church, and was aware in her heart that endeavored to assist the elderly man. A grin, even if fleeting, held greater significance. More significant than any food she might consume, this act of benevolence constituted her genuine joy. After settling the $50 bill, Emma departed. Exited the shop and proceeded back toward church, her heart imbued with tranquility. For the purpose, she grasped the little bag of proposals closely, anticipating their success. Illuminate the solitary man's Christmas oasis. She approached the bench. She observed the elderly man remaining seated in silence, head bowed in contemplation. As she neared, she cleared her throat. Gently extended the warm cup of she carefully directed the coffee toward him. "This is for you." The man gazed upward, momentarily taken aback by her presence. He muttered, "You returned," in a soft voice, as his tired eyes expanded in incredulity. "Unsteady." He hesitated while staring at her. Facial expression indicating her intention. Then he accepted it with trembling hands. He mumbled his profound gratitude, expressing thanks repeatedly. Emma positioned the pastries and Christmas. I contemplated the card position next to him on the bench. "This may enhance your day slightly," she said. "Better," in a pleasant and gentle tone. Promoting the man's attention remained fixed on the card. He opened it carefully and perused the brief. The message she had inscribed on his lips quivered, and he blinked swiftly as though refraining regretfully. "You need not have taken this action." His voice trembled with emotion. "It has been an extended period since anyone demonstrated." Emma exhibited kindness as she seated herself on the bench, maintaining a reasonable distance beside him. "I merely intended to assist," she stated softly. "It is Christmas, and no individual should experience alone today." The man breathed profoundly while grasping a heated cup in both hands. After a brief interval he spoke quietly, his voice resonating with a subdued melancholy. "All I wanted was to feel a sense of belonging once more, even if only briefly. I yearned to feel the warmth and comfort of a family again, even for a brief moment." While Emma's heart ached for him, after a little pause, she stated that it was unnecessary. "Be alone tonight. Why not join me?" "I would greatly appreciate." The man observed her. An expression of astonishment and skepticism. "You have already accomplished a great deal. I do not wish to impose further," he softly asserted. "You are not to impose," Emma asserted emphatically. "Please do it. Christmas holds significant importance for me as well. It is enhanced through sharing." He gazed at her. For an instant, his gaze he finally acquiesced with a slight nod. Upon entering Emma's modest, she greeted him pleasantly in the flat, propping the door ajar with a comforting gesture. The atmosphere was modest yet welcoming. Emma emanated a subtle allure, despite the furniture being incongruous and exhibiting signs of deterioration, such as a sofa with tattered edges and a coffee table with subtle scuff marks. She meticulously organized the items and ensured they were perfectly clean. Emma took pride in crafting a comfortable residence. Despite her meager means, in the corner stood an organized Christmas tree adorned with a few used ornaments on a single string. Lights flickered irregularly. Casting awe, the elderly man lingered near the warm glow. His gaze lingered on the tree. The lights had fallen from above. He extended his arm languidly, carefully repositioned it. Securing it back into the location of the tree appeared somewhat more luminous. A slight smile appeared on his face. Emma observed him by the tree and grinned. She indicated the couch. Make yourself comfortable. I will procure refreshments for us. A meal will not require much time. The elderly man acquiesced and descended into the aged armchair positioned adjacent to the tree as Emma vanished into the compact kitchen, humming softly while she worked. His eyes wandered the room. The side table captured his attention, hesitated, and then selected one. It was a utility bill marked with the term overdue. Shown in large red letters beneath it was more envelopes, each with analogous observations of the overdraft amounts inscribed in ink. His hands trembled at the corner. Gently as he placed the cash back down, he directed his gaze towards the kitchen where Emma was located. Emma hummed softly as she prepared the meal, expertly dividing it into smaller portions. Fragments of what seemed to be remnants of partition contents into small containers prior to allocating a sufficient amount for their meal. It was a modest gesture, yet it conveyed profound significance. Every morsel of food was meticulously served as evidence of her. The elderly man's frugality and hardship reclined in the chair. Cogitations agitating this young woman, despite encountering evident adversities, had bestowed kindness upon him without the reluctance she experienced regarding her expenditure of personal funds to provide him with a dinner, and received him warmly inside her residence, soliciting nothing in return. His heart aching and filled with an amalgamation of gratitude and appreciation when Emma reappeared with 2 steaming bowls of tomato soup and 2 small dishes of. She presented him with a sweet potato casserole receptacle accompanied by a genial expression. This is not elaborate, yet it is cozy and hearty, with a hint of festivity, she remarked. The old man sat down across from him. The man accepted the bowl with gratitude. He nodded, his hands quivering slightly as his gaze shifted to the golden brown crust on the casserole, for which you have exerted considerable effort, stating quietly in his voice that he already appreciated it. Overwhelmed with emotion, I cannot fathom how it is impossible for me to repay you. It is unnecessary, Emma responded with a tone that was both gentle and assertive. Kindness does not require recompense. It is the ideal state of the world for the elderly. The man gazed at her, his eyes shimmering once again. For the first time in a long time, he felt that the true spirit of Christmas is not determined by material possessions or extravagance gestures, yet in the silent benevolence of an unfamiliar individual who had bestowed upon him an item of significant Christmases. As they dined in silence for a brief period, the heat of the meal appeared to establish a resolution between them. An elderly man cast a sidelong glance toward Emma. Furrowing his brow creased with contemplation, he has observed the outstanding bills previously and could not disregard the indications of struggle regarding her unassuming yet orderly apartment. Placing his spoon down delicately, he disrupted the silence. You have been exceedingly gracious, he spoke gently. However, it appears that circumstances it has been challenging for you. Emma hesitated, her gaze descending to the casserole dish for a little period. She appeared between them, hesitant, as if unwilling to impose upon him after enduring her struggles. She finally breathed. He offered a little, nearly contrite smile. I typically refrain from discussing them. I acknowledged that I do not wish for anyone to perceive I am either making excuses or soliciting sympathy. An old man shook his head occasionally. Sharing might alleviate the burden. Even a minimal burden will not elicit my judgment, Emma. You have already contributed much to sympathy. Emma was greatly heartened by his genuineness. Articulate the burden. Even her words emerged with reluctance as she elucidated her circumstances. She possessed employment in a substantial corporation where the burden was insurmountable, and staff were frequently overburdened without appropriate acknowledgement. When she elevated apprehensions of inequitable treatment and regarding certain aspects of the corporation's methods she anticipated would yield beneficial transformation instead. She was terminated immediately to facilitate the company's refusal to provide compensation, which made the situation worse. The pay she was owed without any alternative option. Emma had been subsisting on her funds while engaging in minor freelancing work and remote employment to meet fundamental needs despite her utmost endeavors. Achieving stability remains elusive. Work has presented a challenge daily. It was a challenge to remain buoyant. The elderly man's demeanor softened with he exhibited empathy as he listened attentively. After a little pause, he softly said, "You have endured significant adversity. You still possess the capacity to assist others. Maintain optimism." Emma acknowledged. Her gaze fell slightly to her hands. She expressed contemplation regarding retaliation. Her voice was lightly laden with fatigue, however. "I was unable to manage it. And I am managing all other matters. Always grappling with daily challenges, anticipating that a new employment opportunity will improve circumstances." The old man gazed at the return to normalcy. Emma's expression was contemplative. Yet, for a brief period, he appeared resolute. He was about to say something, but he held back instead. He merely smiled kindly and stated, "You have provided me with greater assistance today than I may ever recompense. Just recall, Emma. Assistance often arrives when least expected. Anticipate it." Emma inclined her head, exhibiting little confusion by his statements, yet too fatigued to inquire. She bestowed upon him a subtle grin, presuming his comment was merely a gesture of appreciation for their dialogue, which progressively transitioned to more trivial subjects. The room exuding a tranquil sense of comfort before the elderly man stood up for an extended duration. His motions were intentional and unhurried, expressed gratitude to her sincerely one final time prior to apologizing for his absence this evening. With Ahe emerged with a kind, contemplative smile. He disappeared into the tranquility of the night, leaving Emma to ponder the unexpected connection they had. 1 hour later, Emma was sitting at their workstation, engrossed in her freelance endeavors. The flat was leaving Emma the intermittent clicking of her keyboard. She expected this initiative to provide her the necessary stability, but an abrupt knock interrupted her concentration. Startled by the door, she peered at it. It was late, and she was not present. Anticipating an intruder as she paused in indecision for a moment prior talkingly opening the door, upon opening it, she became immobilized, standing there with 4 smartly attired attorneys, warm but expressive seriously. The elderly stood behind them. The man from earlier, with his recognizable, pleasant smile, is now suffused with tranquility with his hands. He possessed a determination envelope encased in ornamental paper. "Good evening, Emma," he replied softly. "I hope I do not intend to intrude, but I wish to say farewell once again." Emma blinked in bewilderment, her gaze shifting between him and the lawyers. "Lawyers? What's happening?" she gently inquired. The elderly man advanced and presented. He said, "This envelope is for you. You demonstrated compassion throughout my time of need." Emma gazed at most, and now it is her turn. The envelope in her hands quaking. "I failed to comprehend." Her whispered that it is unnecessary for you to proceed with this. Did not assist you in obtaining something return. "I am aware," he stated with a slight and knowing smile, "is what defines you. If you are worthy of it, please open it." After a moment of hesitation, Emma gradually opened the sheet. Gasped when she beheld the contents constitute an astonishing amount of money, sufficient to alleviate every hardship she had endured as she carried. She gazed up at him, her voice, "I cannot accept this." The elderly man shook his head excessively. "This matter transcends just financial considerations," stated his unwavering tone. "I am aware of your problems with delayed compensation and conflicts you battled independently." While he withdrew, indicating the assembly of attorneys behind him, "are my team of elite attorneys. My firm will accept your case. We will make sure you get the money you deserve, Emma. You will no longer have to contend alone." Gazed at him, Her thoughts whirling, the revelation overwhelmed her suddenly. Man who appeared exceedingly vulnerable just hours prior was the proprietor of aita, esteemed law firm, exemplifies his understated resilience. And influence extended much beyond her had presumed. She consulted the attorney, their composed professional demeanor permeating her with a cautious sense of relief as if her burdens were commencing to. A few months later, Emma stood up outside the courthouse, grasping the conclusive documents pertaining to her case. She prevailed, compelling the corporation to remunerate her every cent owing for relief. She was overwhelmed. But it wasn't just a victory, it was a victory that brought her peace. The assistance of the one who had intervened entered her life on Christmas night, fulfilled his commitment, and with his assistance Emma's life has undergone an unexpected transformation. Anticipated that her ordeal had concluded, and she was unable to refrain from experiencing profound thankfulness for the individual who had transformed her. The world surrounding her, as she glanced back at him, she recognized the tenderness she possessed. The spark she'd shown him changed everything. Thank you for that. Observing this poignant narrative. If this resonates with you, please remember to like it. Please like the video and share it with your loved ones. We encourage individuals to disseminate that lens today. And if you desire additional motivational narratives of this nature, please let us know. Click the subscribe button and become part of our. Your sponsorship aids in the creation of the community you desire. Remarkable content will be available. Remain with nature updates for more profound journeys. Click on the videos displayed on your screen for further exploration narratives that will elevate your mood and enhance your day.